Hey guys, welcome to the next part of the Beginner Unity C# series, and yet again we're going to be looking at this project that we've been using before, but of course these can extend themselves to absolutely any project that you choose to do. So today we're going to look at UIs, how to create a UI and program to basically update the UI and create a custom method to control when we should update it. If I give you an example, if we're in our block trigger script and in the trigger we choose to do damage or heal the player, we could choose to update the UI or the text element every single time we do this, but the easiest way to do it is we create our own custom function in the player health controller and we just call that custom method when we need it. So that means that we don't have to be checking or doing anything unnecessary, and we can use it over and over and over in a simple way to call the function, and we don't have to have multiple lines in each different statement in here to be able to do it. We'll just write it once, we can call that method, and it'll make it really easy for us to do. So if you're wondering how you can create yourself a UI, you can look at the hierarchy, usually on the left hand side, and you can right click and choose UI, and then you can choose something. You can choose canvas. It will create yourself a canvas, and it's good to split up your canvases into several different situations, because in my example here I have got a world space canvas here. You can see this number down here, and this updates in world space, so it's almost like a 3D object, whereas a normal canvas will just be a sort of screen overlay canvas which will always be on the top of the screen no matter where you choose to go. So this is better for if you need to do regimented UIs where they stick in a particular place. But we'll do this and I'll show you how to do it. We can right click that canvas, click UI and choose text, and you'll see that it'll have put our text here. The UI rect tool, when we can move this to say the top corner, because you get this bounding box which you can adjust nicely. We could set the text color to white using the parameters over in the inspector on the right hand side. We could potentially make the box bigger just so that when we increase the text size we can see it there. You can see it in our game view here. What we can do is we can anchor this object to the top left, just so that when we play the game it always stays in the top left. This is really important when you choose to position the UI in different places. Always anchor it to where you want it to be positioned. Then because we can't really see that text very well, what we could do is we could right click the canvas, click UI and choose something like image, and we could then select to move the image up here to the top of where the text is. We could make it bigger as a background. We could choose it back on the text, set it to black, and you can see that you can't see the text, so you need to put the image above the text in this case. So we could just select the text and just centralize it, and centralize in either case, and I could just put it roughly in the center of that image that we've got. Then we've got it there in the top corner, so it's ready to go. So we're going to always update this text component of this text UI, and that's going to be the thing that's going to hold our health. You could do this with images, you could do it with text, but I'm showing you one really simple way to update it in the top corner so we can see it visually. Now what we do is we can go back to the health controller in Visual Studio, and like I said, we want to create a custom method in here which we can call every time that we want to update the health, because we could realistically, like I've said before, use an update function like this, and we could check each frame, if the health should be updated, but there's no point. We want to check that the health is updated when we tell it to do so. It's a really refined way in your code. So at the top you can say using Unity engine.ui with the semicolon. So what this means is we're using a collection and we're using Unity engine.ui, and that means we're going to use some UI components that we're going to reference so we can actually use those specific components without doing a long-handed reference to what we need. So at the top we can just write square brackets serialized field. We can write private text, because that is the UI component is text, and if you hover over text it will tell you that it's part of the Unity engine.ui. And then what we could call this is something like health text with a semicolon on the end. So this is the thing that we're going to update. So what we can do here is we can create our own custom methods. So we could call it public void because we need to access it from other scripts, and we could call it update health with two brackets facing each other and a left and right facing curly bracket. So from there, what can we do? How do we update that text that we need to? So what we can do is we can say, like we did similarly with here when we said to the player health equals player health minus the damage, we need to reference it in a similar way. So we'll actually say that health text is our text component. We write .text because we're going to fill it with the value of text, and then we'll say equals player health .toString, and then open brackets, then you can put in quotes and add a 0 and put a semicolon. You can search this on Google or in the documentation, but what this means is that health text and the text component in the text is a string, and a string is a series of characters or letters, numbers, whatever it may be, and it's not specifically an integer or a float, it's just a bunch of symbols together. So because text is a string and player health is an integer, you can't pass an integer into a string just like that. The programming and the code doesn't understand it. So you need to literally convert player health, which is an integer value or a whole number, to a string value to be able to place it in that option. So we choose to convert player health to string, and then in the quote 0 just means it's going to be a whole number, because you can use something like 0.0 if you want to make it a decimal place value if your health maybe was a float value, and then we add a semicolon on the end just to end that statement. So now we've written this, we can pretty much just call this anytime we update our health, whether we do damage or whether not. So in this case, what we can do is we can say my health controller dot update health with 2 brackets and a semicolon, and we can do exactly the same thing here and paste it in there. That is literally all we need to do. And say we didn't do it like this, we'd have to do the same thing as we did here using unityengine.ui and have this line of text in here each time, depending on how many different sort of objects that we'd have. And it just makes it easier that we only ever have to call update health, and that's all. We don't have to write additional lines or additional long statements if we don't need to, especially if update health has a lot of different statements inside it, because it could update the UI, it could do different effects when you update your health. So do you need to decrease the speed of the player? Do you need to add some effects? So it's a really nice way to control it. We'll go back into Unity again, and we will look at the health controller, and you can see now that health text is missing a text component. So what we can do is we can add the text component to that. And you can see that the text is currently 0. And when we expect to play the game, it won't update that value with what we've got in here. So what we could do is we could go back into Unity again, and in our health controller script, we could just write private void start, which is one of the built-in Unity methods, and it just means that this will execute as soon as the game starts. Then we could just call our method again, update health, so it'll mean that the health will be updated as soon as the game starts to make it visible for everybody to see. So we expect, because the health is 5, we expect this to update to 5 and change every time we go into one of these different objects. So as you can see, it's 5 currently. I can move the ball around and I can see my value updated to 9 because we gained health. We lost health because we went to 7, gained some more, lost some more, and everything like that. And similarly, if I show you my world space UI, it works in exactly the same way. I can walk into and it will update my world space UI on my character. So it's pretty much perfect for what we want to do. And obviously you can make your UIs look far more fancy. That was the be and end all of just adding a simple UI and being able to program that in, using the simple method to update the health at the beginning of the game, and just reference that method inside our trigger event that we already had, just to make it simple for you to redo in the future. So hopefully this helped out and is getting you to grips with what you need to know. So thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Cheers.